Hi, Steve Cooper, Rank Success, and welcome to another episode of my Police Promotion and Leadership podcast, giving you CPD on the go, wherever you may be listening. And in this episode, I interview Pete O'Doherty, who is the current Commissioner of the City of London Police, and we discuss a whole range of topics which I think you'll find really interesting. Pete spent the best part of an hour answering some questions that I had for him on your behalf as aspiring promotion candidates or anybody listening in with an interest in policing and cybercrime issues, economic crime issues, for which Pete is the lead nationally on this and other issues. He also heads up the Police Information Assurance Board. He's got significant portfolio responsibilities in these areas. And I ask him questions including, what are some of the threats and challenges that cybercrime presents for policing right now and in the future. We talk about future IT career pathways for those thinking of joining policing through entry routes into policing that can develop their skills in this area. We talk specifically around expectations of what he believes superintendents, aspiring chief inspectors going for superintendents should display. We also cover lots of issues around leadership and values, emotional awareness. I ask him if what his view is about policing being behind the curve with technology, and do we think it will ever get ahead, and loads more. It's a jam-packed episode, and I'm very grateful to Pete for setting aside the time. Covers a whole lot of issues. There's something in it for everyone, and I commend it to you. And this, if you've got something interesting to say yourself, then please get in touch. I'm happy to share my platform for diverse perspectives on policing and leadership. This podcast is fantastic for your longer term leadership development, and if you're thinking about promotion. But if you've got a process coming up or deadlines pending, then my promotion masterclass video and premium toolkits take away the panic. They level the playing field and set you up for success in the shortest possible time. They're the best investment you can make in yourself to turbocharge your prep, and I'll share some brief info on these toolkits next, and then we'll get straight into the episode and the interview with the Commissioner of City of London Police, Pete O'Doherty, who was very generous with his time. I'm very grateful to him. I hope you enjoy this podcast, and we'll get straight on to it in a minute. My free content and premium subscriber podcast here at Rank Success exists to help develop your leadership awareness over the long term with meaningful CPD on a tight budget. But most cops want structured support to help focus their preparation on all the right things, especially when there's the time pressure of an application form or process, upcoming or planned promotion interview boards, or other promotion assessments are scheduled. My tried and tested premium toolkits and masterclass are just the thing, providing all you need to hit the ground running and stand head and shoulders above other candidates. Go to ranksuccess.co.uk/sergeant for the complete PC to sergeant package. Otherwise, ranksuccess.co.uk/inspector provides 2 ranks in one, explaining how to get promoted to inspector and chief inspector. You'll get application form guidance, interview techniques, example questions along with how to answer them, including forward-facing questions, example evidence at each rank showing you exactly what good looks like, presentation and briefings guidance and leadership concepts made easy, the CVF made simple, and much more. Other officers describe it as a godsend, gold dust, and invaluable material to help them tame the monsters in your mind, which is one of the ways someone described it, and to succeed in your career aspirations. Those who have failed before realise where their gaps are and smash promotion the next opportunity. For return on investment, it'll arrive in your first month's salary increase alone. So why not take your career seriously and invest in yourself today? And these market-leading police promotion materials aren't just to see you into a new rank. With simplified police-related leadership development, it will help you become a better leader too, regardless of whether you're actively seeking promotion right now. See countless testimonials on my site, and feel free to call me on my mobile if you've got any questions. All the best in your career aspirations, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hi, Steve Cooper, Rank Success, and welcome to another Rank Success podcast, the Rank Success Leadership and Mentors podcast. And my guest today is Pete O'Doherty, who is the Commissioner of the City of London Police. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning, Steve. People call me Pod, which is funny because you've got Pod in a podcast, so we can run with that.
Okay, and thanks ever so much for setting time aside in what must be an incredibly busy diary, having just started as the City Commissioner. And I'm correct, I think it's one of the longest appointment processes, is that right? In terms of royal assent and being appointed, have I got that the right way around?
No, you're correct, yeah. So very long process, and it culminates in royal assent, and then you have to swear your oath to an appointed King's Court judge. So yes, very long process. The advert came out for the job in July last year, royal assent achieved 2 weeks ago, and I'm swearing my commitment to Lady Chief Justice on the 27th of February, and then that will hopefully be it. So,
well, many congratulations on that. So having started your policing career with the City of London Police, and now you're Commissioner of the Force, could you give us a quick potted history of your career and what you're most proud of as a leader?
Okay, it's such a great question. So I came out of uni when I was 21, Steve. I had a degree in computer science and mathematics. I still didn't know then I wanted to be in the police. I wish I could sit here and say to you, I wanted to be a cop since I was 5. That wasn't true. But what I did want to do since I was 5 is to somehow help people. I didn't know what that would look like. So I joined the police in 2005, June. I joined the city police and I began as a PC on the beat. I loved doing that. Whizzing around in a car, foot patrol, working the entry point to in the city. And then relatively early on, I really wanted to be a detective. So I became a detective specialising in hate crime, child abuse and domestic abuse. And then by the end of my first 4 years in policing, I became a detective sergeant. And I then knew that I wanted to progress and become a senior leader in policing. Why? Well, first of all, because I saw change coming. Technology crime was coming. I felt the leadership in policing was very transactional, very directive. And although that worked in crisis, I figured that we needed a different type of leadership to help policing evolve and respond to new challenges. So that was my driving force. So to help me become promoted, I applied for the High Potential Development Scheme. I failed the first time. I studied really hard, passed it the second time. Which meant I could become a DI and a DCI relatively quickly. Mm-hmm. I moved into economic crime as a detective sergeant, having done CID and other things. Stayed in economic crime and cyber crime up to detective superintendent, where I led the action fraud and the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau, but also did fraud investigation. As a superintendent, then went to the Metropolitan Police, where I headed up community policing and response policing as a superintendent, which was an important form of development for me. I mean, going from being a specialist detective in the city to now running response policing in East London, very, very different demographic, was significant learning for me and greatly humbled me as a leader. I came back to the city in 2017 as Chief Superintendent, Head of Crime and Counter-Terrorism. And then into economic crime and cyber crime as the Chief Superintendent. I then went off to do my Police National Assessment Centre, worked really hard, passed that the first time, Strategic Command course. 2019, left the City of London Police, permanently employed by Thames Valley Police to lead the Regional Organised Crime Unit in the southeast of England and the Counter-Terrorism Hub. Did that for 2.5 years, came back here in 2022, January, as Assistant Commissioner or Deputy Commissioner as it is now. Did that for 1.5 years. Commissioner here sadly went off unwell. Temporary Commissioner for a year. Appointed in October last year as Permanent Commissioner. That's the journey in a nutshell.
Okay, thanks so much. And what's you alluded to some of it there about the, on your career journey, the superintendent bit and where you developed the most. So what do you think is the biggest insight you've picked up from all of that activity and self-driven CPD as a leader, biggest leadership insight, would you say, if there is one?
So I think there are some. So biggest insight, and I'm mindful, Steve, I didn't answer the second part of your first question around the thing I'm most proud of. So can I quickly do that first?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, please.
The thing I'm the most proud of, this sounds cliche, is what I've done for other people. because, and I'll be really frank here, there is a view held by many people in the organisation that some people that have gone on to progress have put themselves first, sometimes at the expense of others. And I truly believe that that does not need to happen. Quite the opposite. You have a responsibility to help develop and progress others around you as you progress in the organisation, because a promotion, you get a bigger salary, you get a bigger office, you get more staff. But what you really get is a bigger responsibility to help improve the organisation, to help support people around you, to ensure the public benefits. So the thing I'm most proud of, and people say it to me, and I have a long list of things I'm not good at, Steve, I have many faults and failings, is what I have done to help support and develop other people is what I am the most proud of. And when I became commissioner, the thing I loved the most wasn't this new office and the lovely epaulets. It was people writing to me who said to me, we really wanted you to be our commissioner because you have really helped so many of us. That's what I'm the most proud of. Your second question, biggest insight, is this. Anyone can achieve most things. The only question, two questions you have to answer is, what is it you want? But how hard are you willing to work for it? Because pretty much anyone can achieve so much more than they realise. But people don't put the work in and don't know how to put the work in. And I think my insight is that if you are good to people and you put your mind on something and you give it everything you've got, you can pretty much achieve anything you want to. And in this job, I've gone on to meet royal people. I've met professors, I've met ministers, I've met chief constables. Everyone's the same. No one's different. But what you find, luck is part of it, but also most of the people that have gone on to achieve, quote unquote, these senior successful positions, they've put the work in, you know, but also luck has played a part of it. They've had good mentors, good coaches, good timing. And I'll quote Shakespeare, Stephen, saying, there's a quote, I think, from Twelfth Night, which is, for some people, greatness is thrust upon them. Some achieve greatness and some are born great, you know, but you often find that greatness is either thrust upon people or they work really hard for something. I think that's the insight that I would share.
Brilliant. And I think there are quite a few insights in there, Pete, for listeners that are listening in there. So if you are listening in there, rewind that bit and play it through, because there's quite a lot in there. And I think I said I wouldn't jump down any rabbit holes, but there's a natural angle on that in terms of emotional awareness, which is one of the competencies that are now being assessed that allude or align to what you're talking about. How important do you think emotional awareness is in terms of the big change in leadership now and featuring as a competency to assess? So you assess people as senior leaders now and at other levels. How important is that in terms of progressing?
It's everything. No matter what rank you are, it's everything. People don't listen. And as a strategic leader, Steve, yes, it's important I have a vision for the organisation. Yes, it's important we have governance to make good decisions, right? But I believe that the ideas and the knowledge and the skills policing needs to be outstanding already exists. But they exist in the minds and the hearts of the people already in policing. But what happens is you have a culture where decisions are not made using the collective knowledge and skills of the people in the organisation, because we have a transactional hierarchical leadership approach in the main. So if you build a culture of emotional awareness where you listen to people and you harness the ideas and the views and the communicate of people to make collectively good decisions, it means that you're making the best decisions at the right time for the organisation. So emotional awareness is everything. And when you go through promotion, understanding what that panel member is asking you is emotional awareness. Understanding what they want from you is emotional awareness. And understanding why now for that promotion or for that role is emotional awareness. So whether it's leadership, it's promotion, it's being a PC on the beat, a sergeant running a team, it's everything, because decisions require good listening and they require good communication and they require adaptive leader. And you need to have a strong sense of emotional awareness to be a truly effective adaptive leader. Because if I'm a public order commander, it's a directional leadership style. There is no time for workshops and debate. So you have to be emotionally aware about that. Mm-hmm. If you are a strategic leader trying to improve the policing response to cybercrime, you're going to have to listen to your 25-year-olds joining the police with 2 years on the job who have graduated with a degree in computer science, because they know a lot more on cyber than you do. So that requires emotional awareness. There is nothing we do that you can do without emotional awareness.
Thanks ever so much. And just one thing in that you said was, as you can say, lots of people have got lots of different attitudes to career progression and going for promotion boards. And it looks very different in different forces at different times with different ranks. That's just the nature of the beast. But there's sometimes some criticism that comes around where some people say, well, look, all we do in our force is we have to write a letter to the chief saying, why you, why now? And you just touched on that under the context of that important competency. Whilst there are lots of ways of assessing people, as a gateway, as a first part of a process, what do you think of that, giving someone an opportunity to write 750 words, 500 words as a snapshot to get through an initial? Do you think that's a fair balance as an initial gateway or part of it?
Okay, so I can only give you my personal view because I don't have access to any evidence-based or studies as to what is more effective. But what I would say, if it's an internal-only process where senior leaders in the main know the people applying for promotion, I don't think it's a bad thing asking someone to just send out write a letter, set it out, why them, why now, and saving them going through a very long process where senior leaders already have a really good idea as to what those people are delivering and if they're ready or not ready for promotion. However, that cannot work in a process where you are also looking to recruit people externally, because you don't know the people externally, and therefore it would be unfair to say to your internal candidates, letter for you, interview for you lot. So it has to be fair. So it really does depend on the situation. What I do believe, whether it's a letter or an interview, they have to be designed to get the best out of people. Yeah. And I believe that, yes, you have to enable people to provide evidence of all the things they've been achieving. But also I'm keen to understand what people are doing to help support, develop other people around them. Because the thing is, we've all known people, Steve, in our careers who get promoted and you think, yeah, they should be promoted, they're fantastic. And then there's another person, you're like, how did they get promoted? They treat their staff really unfairly. And actually, they appear to seniors as very capable, elegant, capable people, very nice, but ultimately, when doors are closed, don't treat their people very well. And the process has to ensure that that doesn't happen. And something that we're doing here is taking a really good idea from Microsoft where, yes, you have to evidence operational competence and things you've delivered and your values, but you've got to evidence what you're doing to help people around you progress. And that's what we're doing here. So I really am an advocate for that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thanks for that. There's a lot of ground covered there. Moving on to my next question. You are the National Police Chiefs Council NPCC lead for cybercrime. That's still true, isn't it? Still correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Heading up the Police Information Assurance Board. That's a significant portfolio on its own and responsibility. So for listeners, what are some of the threats and challenges that cybercrime presents for policing right now and into the future?
Now, this is really interesting. So, by virtue of my position as Commissioner, constitutionally, if you will, I'm the National Policing Lead for Economic Crime and Cyber Crime. Okay? But as a person, so not aligned to my role, I'm the National Policing Lead for Cyber Security. So that's the threat facing the policing. So if we run with your question on what are the cyber threats facing policing, are as follows. So, hostile state threat actors, the big ones, your Russia, your China, your North Korea, your Iran. There is a big threat of cyber attack from those countries towards the UK. And the idea is that let's destabilize Western democracies to impact economy, credibility. And indeed, therefore, attacking utilities like water, electricity, attacking governments in the US, in the UK, is clearly an ambition and happening from those countries. But for your listeners, Steve, data belonging to policing has the highest trade value on the dark web. Mm-hmm. And things like police control rooms are critical national infrastructure. Because if they're impacted and policing can't mobilise resources against calls for service, we have a problem. People suffer. So there is an active threat. And more vulnerable than police applications are the police and supply chain. So little companies like law firms that are in possession of police information are particularly vulnerable. So there are every month, companies being attacked by threat actors, some of them being hostile state actors, who are hitting these companies with ransomware attacks, taking data belonging to policing and making it available for download across dark markets. So that is a really, really big threat for policing. Mm-hmm. And I would just say this to you, that the invasion of the Ukraine by Russia, 2022, people think that was the beginning of the conflict. But actually, for your listeners, the conflict began, we think, in 2014, when Russian threat actors were attacking digital infrastructure in Ukraine. And in response, other cyber threat actors outside Russia were attacking Russian infrastructure. So this cyber war has been going on for years. And policing is part of that, you know, so we are very vulnerable. And my last point to your question is, why is policing even more vulnerable? It's not just because we have really important data. It's because this is just my view, Steve. Policing is not joined up. Forces use different systems, different mobile phones, different laptops. And all of those devices, they have to be patched, they have to be upgraded. And therefore, that requires much more work. If we had one mobile phone, one type of laptop, we all used the same security infrastructure, it would be easier to be on top of those upgrades. Yeah? So therefore, we're vulnerable because we're territorial. And going forward, there's lots of work going on to try and get policing on the same system so that we can be more cyber secure.
Okay, and I suppose that leads me into a question. I bounced around a little bit on my questions, but linked to that. So what do you think that force IT departments and other organisations working with policing can do in response to data security and threats posed by cybercrime?
Loads, and they are doing loads already. Okay, so the first, let me give you some examples, because if I was to sit here and tell you about everything, your battery would run out on your phone. But just the high things. So first of all, it's baselining and understanding where your vulnerabilities are. Yeah? There's different ways of doing that. But the main way is that through my national portfolio, every year, we assess the cybersecurity posture and position of every police force. And it's a process called the Security Assessment for Policing. And it's within a CAF framework, which is called Cyber Assessment Framework, best practice, and it uses a NIST standard, which is National Institute of Security Standards. And based upon that, every police force gets a score between a 0 and a 5 that reflects how cyber secure that police force is. So that's the first thing we do. The second bit then is training and standards. So information security officers, information asset owners, senior information risk owners, all those positions involved in ensuring that that police force has the right checks and balances in place. So, for example, it's actively testing the security of its infrastructure, penetration testing. Mm-hmm. The police force might bring in ethical hackers to say, try and attack our systems. Mm. And if you get in, help us close down that vulnerability. Mm. Okay? So we make sure that all of those key roles get training, CPD, and accreditations. And actually, our staff say to us, look, we can go and earn much more money in private sector doing these jobs. So the next best thing you can do to keep us is to give us proper training, please, proper CPD and professional accreditation. So we do loads of those different works. The other bit then is making sure if something bad happens, you're able to respond effectively and quickly to mitigate loss. Every police force now, through our assistance nationally, has a cyber incident response plan, which we are in the process of testing and tabletop exercising. And lastly, when policing is impacted as a service, we have a national mobilisation response plan called Delta Alpha 1, DA1. 24/7, any minute of the day, Steve, we have an on-call list of gold cyber commanders.
Yeah.
So if 30 police forces are attacked at the same time, or a national system, let's say the PNC, is attacked and it affects all of policing, Delta Alpha 1 is triggered. It's announced by the National Management Centre. The on-call gold commander who's trained is appointed. That gold commander mobilises a gold group, which would include government, other partners like the National Cybercrime Unit, and all the affected police forces and the on-call golds for those police forces and on-call IT people, where policing comes together and does consequence management. That's not about investigating the attack. That's making sure that all the data that's been breached, whether it's offenders under investigation or victims, policing is telling them. We're managing risk. We're blocking communications from a company, if it's a company that's been affected, like a law firm affecting policing, to ensure that no viruses enter the policing infrastructure and things like that. So there's some examples of stuff we're doing.
Okay, and in terms of health check, just a question off the top of it, how's that going? How well is that on a scale of 1 to 10? If you put your finger on the pulse, is it something that's working well?
It is working well. So look, policing is not as cyber secure as banking. So banking uses a similar framework. So you'd expect your Santanders, your RBSs to be 5s. Policing is not anywhere near a 5 at the moment, but actually it is improving year on year. And this is my own view. If you look across all government departments, I would say policing is probably the most advanced when it comes to understanding its current risks and working to close down those vulnerabilities and risks to become more cyber secure.
Okay, thanks. And thanks for that overview. So I don't know where this fits, but in relation to strategy or strategies, you alluded when I heard you speak at the Emergency Services Show last September, you alluded to detect, prevent and defend as part of a strategy. So can you just expand on that for listeners? And in relation to forces readiness, can cybersecurity measures be assessed? I think you've answered that in part. And if so, is there a role within HMICFRS inspection arrangements to do some of that work, even in a little bit or a lot, or does it not fit?
Okay, so 2 parts to that question. So first of all, on the cybersecurity strategy, detection is key. It's very important because when people think about a cyber attack, you imagine trying to log onto your computers and nothing works. But that's not always the case. What may be happening is that you have a threat actor in your systems covertly collecting information, collecting password information, but your systems appear to be working fine. That could be for a day, a week or a year. So having capability to detect early on is essential. Now, if every police force did that 43 times, terribly inefficient. So we have a central capability called the National Management Centre that has about 100 people. And what they're doing, they're looking across the clear web, the deep web and the dark web, looking for compromised police information. They're looking at chat room information. They're looking at threat actors and vending sites selling information to get as early as possible an idea, has policing been attacked and we just don't know it yet. So detection is so important because it enables prevention and early response. Yeah. The prevention piece is as important. So that's doing everything you can to prevent attacks. So making sure that you've got good security infrastructure. You've got, trained professionals to look out for those issues. And then, of course, defending. So that is, if actually prevention hasn't worked and detection hasn't worked and something is happening, there's immediate response, whether you are a single police force or you are a policing service, right? Your second question, HMIC. Now, I can't say too much about this at the moment, but what I will say is this, that police chiefs, Steve, are under enormous pressure at the moment. Finite resource, huge, priorities, human trafficking, drugs, domestic abuse, knife crime, I can go on. So as a chief, you've got to make decisions as to where you put your resources. And the reality is that if you take fraud, for example, fraud is not really a priority for police chiefs. Many reasons. One reason being because the HMICFRS traditionally hasn't inspected police chiefs and what they're doing in fraud. That's now changing, and going forward, the HMICFRS is going to inspect forces on fraud, and I therefore expect to see an improved response by police forces to investigate more fraud. So, to your question, let's just say that the HMICFRS are quite open to think about inspecting police forces and cybersecurity going forward. And I think that will definitely see more interest because they now know their force is going to be inspected on their response to cybersecurity.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for that. Have a sip of your coffee there. Yeah. We're going at a pace, aren't we? Yeah. Just again, aligned to that in some ways, some people say that policing is always behind the curve with technology. Do you believe there'll ever be a point where it'll be surfing the crest of the wave or ahead?
I think it's possible, but there is one huge dependency. Now, there are a number of requirements here: attracting the right people, retaining the right people, changing remuneration so that people stay, improving training accreditation so people stay, working more collaboratively with industry to develop capability, particularly AI, quantum computing. But there is one big dependency, and that is stopping policing doing the same thing 43 different times and doing it once. Getting policing, if policing uses the same technology once, what that means is that you can do much more with a combined budget. So if you take all the different technology we use, from basic technology like phones and laptops through to more advanced technology we use to maybe go after the criminals, if you do all of that in the same way 43 times, you can now do much more with your budget. If policing begins to do that, I think it's really then possible to start investing that dividend into more advanced capability in a way that then catches up and potentially even outpaces capability and infrastructure being used by criminals because policing is working together and looking forward. When policing is spending money on different technology and we're all doing it in different ways, you're never going to catch up. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's a common theme that arises. The 43 forces approach is something that keeps going. I think the big thought is that there should, at some stage, if there's a political and operational appetite for it, to move to whatever it is, 7 or 9 that have been
definitely
posed or mooted before.
And look, just to say, there have also been benefits in forces doing their own thing because it creates innovation. We have seen many examples of single police forces creating some really good technical solutions to problems, so we shouldn't restrict innovation and creativity even at a local level, but it needs to be nationally coordinated. And for standard problems or standard processes like booking a prisoner in, that's the same everywhere in the country because it's governed by pace. So there's no justification, I think, to have 4 different custody systems because we all do custody, we all deliver it in exactly the same way. That is what needs nationalisation. Also automation. So firearms licensing, is a finite process because a number of systems are checked, the person applies, systems are checked, and an outcome is given. That should be automated. And we don't want forces to buy in different solutions on different contracts for that because we should all do that in the same way.
And that makes sense. And without raising the spectre or the topic or the nature of AI, there's scope for AI to do more automated decisions based on information and learn from the decision making in future.
Yeah.
So very much linked to that as well. When I heard you speak before, and there was quite a few, what I would say, young tech specialists, people you alluded to before with degrees in computer science and mathematics like yourself, that had a real appetite and interest in policing. So at the emergency services show, you answered quite a few questions from the floor, and you alluded to some really innovative ideas concerning those kind of graduates who are usually recruited at job fairs, etc., by private companies offering phenomenal salary scales that policing cannot compete with. So what might a career pathway look like for an aspiring specialist fraud or computer investigator wanting to include policing and public service on their CV before progressing through that private sector?
Doing the same thing repeatedly, expecting different results, is never the way forward. And so we've been doing loads of work to diversify attraction and recruitment and progression, particularly within economic crime and cybercrime, because it does require a niche skill set. There is a big attrition issue because particularly when the economy is in a difficult position, cost of living has increased, many people struggling to pay their bills are therefore attracted by bigger salaries in industry. It's now more important than ever that we are flexible as a police service to do all of that. But on your question around progression, I've got a few thoughts. So first of all, if you want to be a chief police officer, you do need to do different things because, you're leading a police force that is investigating terrorism, it's deploying firearms officers, it's investigating cybercrime. And so you do need to have a broader skill set. So when, someone says to me, how do I stay in cyber my whole career and be a chief constable? At the moment, that's not really doable. And there's good reasons why it's not doable. But that doesn't mean that you should only stay in cybercrime for 2 years. So I've been in economic crime and cybercrime since 2009, 16 years. But there's two differences. First of all, on that career journey, I left economic crime and cybercrime on several occasions to go do something different, and then I've come back to it. So it's been possible. And that's possible for anyone. So you could become a constable investigator in fraud, then you could go do the same role in cyber. You could get promoted as a sergeant in cyber. You could get promoted as an inspector in cyber. Then you could go and run major crime as a DCI. Then you could come back as a superintendent and lead the rock cube. So there are different ways of doing it. But also I've been lucky because as a police force, we lead nationally on cyber and economic crime. So there are more opportunities here, right? So in answer to your question, I think we should enable more progression within a specialism, but we should be more proactive in mapping new career journeys for people that take them out and in of that specialism so that they get the best of both worlds. They get progression within a specialism, but also they get longer term career progression by giving access to opportunities to go do different things, if that makes sense. So there is definitely a balance to be had. But people do need to decide something. They need to decide, do I want to run a police force in the future, or do I want to stay in cyber? And the good news is that even leaving a police force now, going to work in industry, going to work in the National Crime Agency, coming back to policing, is now that fluidity is more possible than ever before. And in many cases, particularly for police staff, I encourage it to go do different things and to always come back and bring that learning and those skills back to do more work. And I think it's really important that chief officers and senior leaders understand those business areas so they can provide more support and development for people when it comes to that progression.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks very much. And that brings us back. So just changing, if we can just very slightly tack back to the topic of progressing careers through promotion, through the ranks then. So it's a big step from the federated ranks. You alluded to it partly earlier on around some of the learning you achieved at Superintendent and the mistakes you made or failures as such. It's a big step from the federated ranks to superintending ranks in terms of strategic leadership and development. So what insights would you share specifically for officers who are seeking to make that jump now? What do you expect from your own superintendents?
Really good question. So expectation. As an inspector, it's very much operational, tactical grip and pace. You are invariably running, unless you work on a project or a specific piece of work. If you're an inspector within response or communities or CID, appreciating that those roles are very different, you are effectively, you are leading a group of people to achieve a really important operational purpose. And so as an inspector, you need to be making sure that your people have the tools and the awareness and the skills they need to go out there and deliver results for the public. Okay? But you're probably not really concerned about budget planning or making sure that the command within which you operate is achieving the goals set out in the policing plan. You're making sure that your staff have what they need to deliver. You're maybe not thinking too much about transforming the culture, etc., etc. That is the job of a superintendent. And again, a superintendent, the roles are very different, whether you are an SIO in the Met or you are the head of community policing in Hertfordshire. They're very, very different jobs. But as a superintendent, it's that role that really requires strategic perspective. Understanding, here is the policing plan and vision for my organisation. How am I going to make sure that across my business area or command, our role in fulfilling the policing plan is being met? Okay? So let's say in this organisation, we've got a really clear mission to be, one of the most trusted and inclusive police services in the country, strong levels of inclusion, high levels of motivation, low levels of crime. How am I giving my inspectors what they need to make sure that their teams have what they need to deliver operationally? So as a superintendent, you are thinking about medium to longer term. You're thinking about training. What budget do I have to help my team succeed? What's happening across the police force that I need to be aware of that's going to impact me and my people? What are we doing to create and generate new solutions to problems? Who are my partners that I'm working with? Are they getting what they need from my staff? So it's effectively, a big step back and a much more helicopter view of that delivery. And really you are the bridge between the vision and on the ground delivery. Mm-hmm. So you are converting strategy into tactical delivery. And really it's that first rank in policing where you start to manage the business. It feels more like business management. You start to think about, am I being visible? Am I being accessible? Am I translating the chief's vision into my inspectors so that when their teams are on the ground, they know what their role is against that? So one example, we've just released here a new community policing strategy, and it sets out the strategic objectives of community policing. The superintendent, my expectation is the one that sits down and says to the chief, I understand this strategy, I understand what you want me to achieve, then goes away and works out that all those dedicated ward officers, the sergeants, the inspectors and the chief inspector understand what their roles are within that strategy, and I make sure they've got what they need to fulfil their obligations. So, DWO, dedicated ward officer, the strategy is clear, it wants you to be a problem solver. So what does that look like? What training do you need to be a problem solver? Culturally, you need to feel empowered. So am I giving you the reassurance that you're empowered? Do we have a blame culture? Do we have a culture where I prefer you to go and act and ask for forgiveness if you have to, instead of asking for permission? And you feel that I've built that culture. Does my chief inspector have the budget that he or she needs to deliver all of that? Our cluster panel meetings, are they well advertised? Do we have comm support? Are we collecting feedback? Are we working with our communities to speak to them about the issues they care about? Are we being defensive or are we being open? They're the things you're thinking about as a community policing superintendent in delivering the strategy set by the chief.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's really comprehensive, and thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that listeners, particularly those aspiring to that rank at this time, will find incredible value in that. So thank you very much.
And can I say, Steve, I've got to say that forgive me very much. I'm a passionate person for cutting across you there. Do it because it makes you happy. Yeah, we have this habit in policing of patting someone on the back because they've been promoted. Now, being promoted is an absolute achievement and people should be congratulated. But you shouldn't be acknowledged just because you've been promoted. If you want to be a PC for 30 years, go out there every day and serve the public, you should always be congratulated for that because it's probably the hardest job in the job.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a danger in people going for promotion because it's expected of them. Do it because it's going to make you happy. Don't do it if it's going to make you miserable. And I have seen plenty of people get promoted, run the business and love it. I've seen plenty of people get promoted, run the business and hate it. Mm. Success is waking up, going into work, being happy in making a difference. You can do that as a PC and you can do it as a commissioner. But do it because it makes you happy. And a great man once said to me, his name, Ranjit Maganani, my coach for a few years. He said to me, yes, Pete, it's a bit about what you want to do, but really it's about where are you best placed to serve your community. So actually, I always enjoyed being a copper, arresting people, doing that. But I really enjoy strategic work, which is why going promotion quickly for me worked, because I enjoy the work. But it comes with long hours and big responsibilities. But I love that environment. So I'm a success, I think, Steve, not because I'm a commissioner, not because I did it early on, but it's because I love what I do and I treat people well doing what I do. And I think with the skills that I have, I am best placed to serve my community in the strategic position that I am in. It's not about the rank, it's about the delivery.
Brilliant, thank you. And then obviously right aligned to that is this next point really, which is the City of London Police is almost proof of the pudding. And I appreciate a lot of this work's been ongoing in the City of London Police, but the City of London Police have achieved the Silver Award on the Inclusive Employers Standard and the highest award achieved by any force. So what is it that you're doing? What good practice can you share? You've alluded to a lot of your approach and your philosophy. What good practice can you share that's resulted in that?
So, any and every police force has to understand, why are we doing this? There are many studies proving that inclusive workforces are higher performing organisations, and also because, there needs to be equity in any organisation, fair access to all opportunity, and we don't all need the same things to be successful. But as a businessman, Steve, I know I run a police service, not a business, but thinking it like a business is this. People come into work every day and they can be themselves. There is a sense of fairness. They feel supported. Those people don't go sick. Those people come into work happy, motivated. What do motivated people do? They work. Hardworking people create hardworking teams. Hardworking teams create productivity. Productivity benefits our shareholders, and our shareholders are the public. So, how do you get people to come into work to be happy so that those train of events happen? Is by having a culture where there is a sense of equity, diversity and inclusion. You can be you. Don't need to pretend. You can be you and you can flourish. And so saying it's a priority is only the first step. A lot of people say this is a priority, but actions always speak louder than words. And it's everyone's responsibility. So to answer your question, what do you do? It's not rocket science. Every time that I go out and speak, I speak about this. Every meeting I have, it's one of my first agenda items. I want every chief officer to have in their PDR, they've got an objective on ED&I. I've said to people here, if you want promotion, you've got to prove to me what you're doing to help other people progress and be themselves and feel supported. Yeah? We've got a zero tolerance approach. Any behaviour that shows any signs of untoward behaviour or discrimination in breach of our values, we will take a firm and robust approach, and I will not apologise for that. Yeah, I make sure that when I go out for promotion, even for senior roles, I always offer a video briefing to break down barriers, to break the ice and attract as many people as possible. And for my recent process I led for Deputy Commissioner and Commander, I worked with the British Association of Women in Policing and the Black Police Association, for example, to ensure I was reaching out to as many colleagues from underrepresented groups as possible to attract them to the role. I make sure that on my panel, I cover off as many protective characteristics as possible to prevent unconscious bias. Now, I'll give you one example. Everyone carries unconscious bias, whether you're a white man or a black man, yeah? But in my view, this is just my own view, that if you've got an all-white panel, I think it's more likely than not you're going to have an unconscious bias against a person of colour than if you had a non-all-white panel. And so I make sure that when I sit on a panel, my panels are not all white. Mm-hmm. You know, a simple thing. Yeah. But I think those things make a big difference. And it's a reminder to people of what's important, you know? And I have to say, as Peter Drucker once said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. The reality is I could have the slickest governance in place, the most clearest strategies that look great, compelling. If the culture's bad, none of that matters. Mm. And the first way to create a transformational culture, and the main way is people. Mm. And the main way you make people feel good is an environment of love, where people can be themselves.
And I like that. And thank you for being so open and transparent on that, because the thing I pick up from that, which is one of the other kind of themes that are bouncing around included within that, is that psychological safety and people being able to come to work and be themselves. Yeah. And I think you alluded to it earlier on, was it Apple or Google that did the research and came up with, you know, the most effective organisations are those that facilitate an environment that includes psychological safety, which seems to me part of what you're talking about.
And, you know, the other thing, Steve Jobs, don't hire smart people and then tell them what to do. So, you know, the institution of policing and its leadership and culture, you know, rightly back then was built to manage crisis effectively. You know, if you have a riot, you know, you have, serious organised crime, that does require quick decision making. And normally the person in charge has the lived experience. They've been a firearms commander, they've been an SIO. And, you know, to respond to a crisis, there is no time maybe for workshopping and debate on, what should we do? It is, I'm gold, you're silver, you're bronze, get it done. But increasingly more so, the wicked problems or the complex problems that we are up against in policing, for example, how do you improve trust and confidence? How do you drive efficiencies? How do you get on the front foot with technology? These are not, they are crises, longer term crises, but they're not like issues that require an immediate decision for life and limb. So therefore they require transformational leadership to get the right people around the table, which isn't always rank. It's people with the right knowledge and skills and ideas to make the best possible decisions collectively. Yeah, that requires a different leadership style. And it requires senior people like me to listen to the smart people in which we hire. Yeah, and I want more junior people to tell me, Pete, that is not the right decision, and I will damn well listen. And I am well up for changing my decision based upon views and information that I do not have.
And that leads me very nicely into my penultimate question, Pete, which is on that theme. You've said that policing can expect to see more criminal activity via generative artificial intelligence and quantum computing. So how does your cybercrime portfolio link or overlap with the artificial intelligence, the AI portfolio being led by the National Crime Agency lead or director, Alex Murray?
I mean, so linked, aren't they? Because, one of the ways in which cybercrime is being committed and will be in the future is going to be through AI. Quantum computing feels slightly less known at the moment, and AI is still massively evolving at pace, I might add. But it's hugely linked, and there are regular conversations and planning. But, I'll give you one example, particularly within cyber fraud. AI is being used by, boiler rooms. So if for listeners who have seen Wolf and Wall Street, boiler rooms. So those running the boiler rooms now, some of them using AI to develop scripts that are very compelling, so that when they read the script, aimed at encouraging a vulnerable victim to invest their pension into a company that doesn't exist, it's going to really work, So that's already happening. And so policing is really good at coming together to share these trends and typologies to then problem solve it and work together on it. And fake news, let's talk about the very, very tragic murders in Southport, the fake news from that cyber criminal, really, that the offender was an immigrant, which sparks riot and public unrest. And of course, one person that promulgates one very damaging message, look at the impact that had. So, back to your question, Steve, around technology, we need to be on the front foot around these emerging trends and somehow predict them before they happen so that we can mitigate them, prevent them. So...
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. And my final question, Pete, and I ask this of all my kind of guests, if you could go back in time, Pete, to when you first joined, what advice would you give yourself with what you know now as a new constable?
I'd probably give myself a lot of advice, Steve. An awful lot of advice. Okay, I would say the following. Do things because you want to do them, and not because of the pressure you put on yourself because others expect you to do it. You see? When the first day in uniform on the street, I remember feeling so visible. And when I looked at those who had thrived around me, the PCs, the sergeants, I thought, maybe I need to be like them to survive this, You don't. You need to be you and take your time to find the person that you want to be as a police officer. There is no right or wrong. As long as you uphold the values, follow the law, do it in your way. Speak to people in the way you want to speak to them and map out your own career journey. Don't say, well, look, all the people I join with are now sergeants and I'm not. Do it because it makes you happy and do it for the right reasons. And try and take the pressure and the expectation from others away from you and just do it. And also, the only person I believe you should ever want to be like is a future version of you, because it's the only person you really have any control over, And as you go through your career, you'll probably never meet anyone that you want to exactly be like, but take the good and the bad, and you'll say, I want to be like her in that way, but I don't want to be like that in his way, and you begin to create that future version of yourself that you will aspire to be like. That's what I would say.
Brilliant. And once again, thanks ever so much, Pete O'Doherty, for setting aside some time. Pete O'Doherty, Commissioner of City London Police. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
My free content and premium subscriber podcast here at Rank Success exists to help develop your leadership awareness over the long term with meaningful CPD on a tight budget. But most cops want structured support to help focus their preparation on all the right things, especially when there's the time pressure of an application form or process, upcoming or planned promotion interview boards, or other promotion assessments are scheduled. My tried and tested premium toolkits and masterclass are just the thing, providing all you need to hit the ground running and stand head and shoulders above other candidates. Go to ranksuccess.co.uk/sergeant for the complete PC to sergeant package. Otherwise, ranksuccess.co.uk/inspector provides 2 ranks in 1, explaining how to get promoted to inspector and chief inspector. You'll get application form guidance, interview techniques, example questions along with how to answer them, including forward-facing questions, example evidence at each rank showing you exactly what good looks like, presentation and briefings guidance and leadership concepts made easy, the CVF made simple, and much more. Other officers describe it as a godsend. gold dust and invaluable material to help them tame the monsters in your mind, which is one of the ways someone described it, and to succeed in your career aspirations. Those who have failed before realise where their gaps are and smash promotion the next opportunity. For return on investment, it'll arrive in your first month's salary increase alone. So why not take your career seriously and invest in yourself today? And these market-leading police promotion materials aren't just to see you into a new rank. With simplified police-related leadership development, it will help you become a better leader too, regardless of whether you're actively seeking promotion right now. See countless testimonials on my site and feel free to call me on my mobile if you've got any questions. All the best in your career aspirations, and I hope you enjoy the podcast.